And here we are with Lisa Zimmo herself. How are we doing? How are you getting on?
Very good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, always good. Always good. So, regards of people who aren't familiar with yourself, we'll do a quick little intro. So, regards of yourself, you're training at GB Top Team under Brad Pickett, also been on the podcast. Little plug there. Get it on there. Now, how come you came across Brad in the first place to train with him?
So I was training with Fight Zone before I joined Brad, and then I went to Thailand. So this was 2019. I went beginning of November for 6 weeks to Thailand. Was training out there. Fell in love with it. When I came back, I came across Brad. So I heard about him from Claudio. He fights in the
Mm,
UFC, and he mentioned Brad to me. He was like saying he's an amazing coach and blah blah blah. And I thought I tried to research him, and the first thing that came up was Manchester Top Team, and I
really?
was like, this is going to be crazy. How am I going to get
It's a
there?
long drive.
I'm happy to travel, but maybe not from Manchester, not to Manchester. So I was training at Fight Zone, but I wasn't happy because I didn't feel like it was the place I belonged, and that I wasn't going to get where I wanted to get. So I saw Brad standing in the same room I was training in, and I thought, oh my God, is that him? And then I approached him and I asked him if I can, come try a class and for him to decide whether I can join. And then it happened from there.
So, with Pfizer, was Nick Bagley there at the same time?
Pardon?
Was Nick Bagley there at the same time? I think he was at Fight Zone as
No,
well.
no. I actually never met him there. No, because I think Yuki was also one of my other team members was training with Fight Zone. That's what I heard, but I've never come across them.
How strange. So, regards of what Brad gives versus what previous gyms haven't, what is the thing you're looking for at that moment in time? Obviously, at your career, as you start to progress, you need different things, you need different areas of your game improving. Is it stylistic kind of things? Is it more mentorship? Is it just general structure? Where did you feel he could sort of add to your game?
I think with the one of the positives about training with Brad is one obviously what he's achieved. So it also gives students that comfort and trust in him to get us where we want to get. And the way he has his schedules, his training schedule structured, you've got 5 days a week, you know what you're doing, you know what you're covering. It's all MMA based. So in a lot of gyms, for example, when I was training at Fight Zone and I was doing BJJ, it was Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so it wasn't MMA Jiu Jitsu. And funny enough, that's one of the things I struggled with when I did start doing MMA, where I was like, okay, so the stuff I usually do, jiu-jitsu, chilling on my back,
Hmm.
having someone, oh my God, that's all
New.
useless. Why am I doing this? So this is where I found Brad's training very useful. And obviously the team he has already created, they're all strong team members, a lot of professionals, people that have gotten to where I want to get. So you kind of go in and you've got so much respect for them, and you trust your training with them because you kind of then you start seeing yourself in them, and you're like, oh, this is where I can be one day. So that's why his team is. I found it very good for me.
I mean, there is certainly a mix of styles there. Obviously, you got Big Wes Meyer, also fan of the podcast. Helped me.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
it Wes Meyer helped teach me on Portuguese? He's the man. I think is it Claudio Silva? Is that the one the bloke you were on about earlier? Because I think
Yeah,
he's also
yeah,
friends with
yeah,
Claudio's already helped him. Also, friends with Wes who helped him sort of progress. And again, you have such a mix of styles there. And again, it's a very strange thing to sort of articulate to people who aren't in the sport that when you come in this sort of sport, it's different ways of going about it without seeing your projection. Again, you don't know if you're hitting the bag right. You don't know what you're doing there. You don't know where this can go. I'm fighting an amateur shows around the corner from me. Can I get on the world stage and see Nathaniel Wood next to you? Okay.
yeah.
There's something to this. Again, there is a process here. It's the bigger picture. Now, regards of your thoughts on your MMA so far, as far as a career goes, has it always been a career for you, regards of trajectory and where it's going to go? Is it just been something you enjoy? It's case by case. What has MMA actually meant to you at this sort of stage?
So I definitely want to make a full-time career out of it. I want to make it onto the big stage. Um, I want my name to go international and around the world. Um, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I gave up my career, I gave up my job. So I was working in HR. I'm a law graduate, worked in a bit of law firms as well. But I know this is 100% what I want to do. So I am definitely living broke fighter's lifestyle where you're hardly earning anything to make this happen and to make time for training.
So with that, I mean, something that's really unappreciated with this is something you actually want to do versus what's going to make you money. They're very different things. What you actually want to do, because before this, we start recording, you were saying you have like a 2-hour commute to the gym. I mean, you don't do that for a job you don't like. You don't do that for a job you have to grate your teeth with. Like that level of enthusiasm and passion is so important. Now, talk us through this 2-hour commute then. What takes you so long to get to training there and back? I'm exhausted hearing it already.
Because the area I live in, so there's one bus that can take me to the station. I do have multiple stations around me, but there's only one station that's considered London, and the others I've got to buy a ticket. The trains there's only 2 trains every hour. The bus is on a time schedule. Obviously, they choose not to run according to the schedule many times. So it just means that if they're 3 minutes late, I could potentially miss my train. And then, like I said, the next train is not till another half an hour. And now with COVID, there's a train every hour. So I'm having to leave extra early, and sometimes I'm walking to the train station, which takes me 45 minutes because I trust myself to get there on time and I'm not trusting the buses. And I've got to change. So I've got to take basically 2 buses and 1 train. And sometimes depending on other gyms that we've had to train in, I've had to take more than 1 train. So that's the problem. But like you said, if you don't love it, you won't do it. And I remember when I was working in an office in HR, I was commuting, it was taking me 45 minutes to get there, which was nothing. But I was miserable. I hated every single second of it. The entire process stressed me out. So at least when I go to training, I'm even willing, if there is a problem with the train, to pay a £20 Uber, because I know at the end of the day, every single minute or hour in that gym is going to get me where I want to be.
Well, again, there's a layer of sort of fulfillment, and again, there's just so much with that because the polarizing opposites of an office job with a 9 to 5, that set structure, very clear format, versus open MMA, fairly ambiguous, the sense of what is the priority here, what certain things are there. And again, they're very opposites in themselves, but the authenticity, I use that word very, very deliberately in MMA. You know exactly what you've done. You know exactly what you haven't done. You know everything about what you're doing. And again, you don't know necessarily what it's going to pay off, but you know this is how it is, especially sparring is a prime example of this. Like, you could say, or this, that, and the other, this would happen. No, you go in there, you have your rounds, this is what actually happened. Whereas in the office, in these kind of environments, you hear, oh no, I'm better than you at this job, or they do this, that, and the other there, so and so. It's just such a facade. It's so ingenuine. It's so inauthentic. And again, there's a firm price to pay for that, to actually have, again, making the sacrifices you're making. I'm going to ask a very almost silly question you've probably been asked a million times. Is it the option of moving nearer? Not really on the radar.
I've kind of done that like multiple times, and I feel sorry for my partner because he's had to move with me. And it's funny because every time I've found a gym, or during the lockdown I trained with New Wave with Kate. And I was like, oh wow, it was taking me so long to get there. I was like leaving every day 2 hours and 10 minutes before just to get there. And same thing. And I was like, oh my God, if I can just live in East Croydon, I'd be in between New Wave and I can do a few sessions in the evening with them and then do my full time 5 days a week with Stronger, like with Brad. He was like, please tell me we're not moving again. So I've just got into a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to have to stay in one place. He's bought a house here and just deal with it. I did buy a scooter, so I don't have to walk to the station or catch a bus, which means I'll scooter it on my electric scooter, which is not bad, is it?
I mean, that's pretty sick.
Save me 20 minutes.
So regards to your partner and your training and all the rest of it going on, like, does he train as well? Is he involved in the sport? Does he stay completely away from it? Is he like, what's that sort of side of things like?
So he doesn't actually train in any sort of martial arts. He's a big fan of watching it, and he's into his boxing, MMA, wrestling, whatever it is, always has been. But he's more about gym, weightlifting, and a football. He's all about football. But he's a big supporter, so which is a big part of my story, that he's always believed in it. Has a lot of respect for fighters, does 100% see it as a career. And he says it to me every day. Me going to training is me going to work. This is my job. Where I've never really had that kind of support from anyone else, even people in my family. They don't understand it.
I mean, you hear these sort of the standard from the other way around, where the man's the one training, the girls they're reluctantly supporting. But again, you hear this sort of side of things. And I feel it's so underappreciated that this is a possibility. And again, the female athletes out there hearing this, who are sort of saying, I can't find, you know, the guys are X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to do my own thing. And again, you find somebody who actually supports you. And I'm going to ask a question on probably on the answer to, but how much of a difference has it made having someone in a relationship who actually gives a shit and supports you? How much better do you feel everything goes? Like, obviously,
100%. It's like, it makes all the difference. So for someone like me, I do believe being with someone that doesn't do the same sport as you is a benefit. So I know some people see it as, oh, we can train together, we can be training buddies. I don't think it's healthy.
No.
At the end of the day, it is a competitive sport. It's an individual sport, but people will always compare. Oh, I know this better than you, or you do this, or I do this, or you'll always have arguments. Where this way we kind of keep it separate, and it helps in the sense that he's very understanding. Like, he's willing to do everything and help me succeed in my career. So he's been with me to competitions. If I've had to travel to Europe to compete, he's been there with me. He's taken days off work. During my training camp, he's held pads, which the pandemic has helped a lot, because he ended up having to learn how to hold pads to help me train. On the weekends, he always holds pads for me, because it's one of the ways I like to get my practice in. And I do really think it is possible. People always see it as it's hard to find someone, but sometimes you can't make someone love what you do or respect what you do. It's just whether there are people that do and there are people that don't. And I think I got lucky that he does.
I mean, there's a thing in most recent Jordan Peterson book, Beyond Order. Everyone knows I bum up with Jordan Peterson a bit too much, but there we are. When it comes to relationships, maintaining them and building them, you don't get these perfect people as such. Again, it's the constant work and ongoing. Again, it sounds very fairy tale, but I can imagine it's not as straightforward as that. Again, you get all the conversations, the back and forth, this, that, and the other. And again, it's the build up. It's putting that work in, put that template in. Again, it's not for nothing, and it's not come from nothing. But again, that's why it is now something. And this is why this conversation, I think, is really prominent. And there's a few things in this I want to go into a bit further. And again, anything that you don't want to go into too much, we can, take out, but it's fine. So my first episode of the podcast, I had my friend Mickey on. He's a professional boxer. And the first thing he said to his girlfriend was, boxing comes first. First date, let him know, cards on the table. In your relationship, at what point was, okay, so, the weekends you like having together? Those open mats, the sparring session.
I never did a sport before I met him. So we've been together for a really long time. It's been like 8 years or more, probably. I lost count. I started doing sports when we were together. So he got to see me develop and evolve into this person that wants to go into this sport. And he even says, I guess for people listening, the reason why he backs me and believes in me and he's willing to make so many sacrifices is because he sees my dedication. He's seen there's days I've been in pain as a woman. We have tummy cramps. I get severe migraines. It could be anything. And he's seen me get out of bed, get up early and go to training. And I don't use those kind of excuses to find ways to not do it. So, and I guess that's the reason why he's a big supporter, is because of my determination to make this happen. And we've already set a plan that I'm going to give it my all, bearing in mind I left my job to do this. And he's going to have to support me.
Again, that's so important. Again, I like the way it wasn't already there, and that he sees you mature and develop. And again, when we say develop, for anyone who hasn't trained or had this sort of experience, the art of asking yourself very honest questions and answering them makes you grow up a lot quicker than you'd like to. And when it's a catalyst of MMA punching you in the face, you have to get some answers pretty quickly. And this is where you see people sort of, okay, I'm not made of glass, or I'm not as tough as I thought I was, but now I'm getting built up. Again, this very, very honest, very raw kind of personal development. and to see someone appreciate that from an outside perspective. And now this is where these sort of questions come from me, from on his behalf, of seeing your partner again. When you see it, the man beating up, and the woman's nurturing, it's all fine. But again, you see the other way. Like if I had a partner who came back from training beaten up, I don't know how I'd feel about it. Like I have dated girls who've trained, and they probably beat me up. That's not the point. It's fairly instinctive of, okay, my partner is hurt, I want to look after him to protect them. It's a very, I don't know, it goes against nature. Not nature.
No, you're right. I
You know what I
agree.
mean? It's very.
I did ask him a question. Because I did wonder the same once. I was like, it is a bit weird. It's usually the other way around. But he's so invested, and it's quite funny because even when he's watched me compete or watch me have my first MMA debut in November, and he had to watch it in a pub through a screen, which was not exactly how we imagined it, but he really does get emotionally invested. And I like the fact that he doesn't treat me like a delicate petal or a flower, like, oh, I don't want you to get hurt, or maybe you shouldn't do this. He's actually very supportive, and he understands this is what's going to make me stronger. This is what's going to make me better. I come back hurt, I come back broken, I come back tired more than other days. He's happy to do the cooking and do the cleaning and just let me rest so I can recover for the next day, which this is the understanding we have.
And this is where the term relationship is really important, because again, it's a back and forth. And again, I'd imagine like when you're feeling a bit more life in you, you reciprocate, cook as well, do other bits and bobs. And again, it's a balance. It's understanding what is going on in the bigger picture. And this is where kudos to him for having that overall, I don't know, understanding of a situation. I think that's the biggest thing here. It's not just, oh, look at me, I'm just gonna roll over and do this. No, it's a back and forth thing. It's a building thing. And again, it takes a lot to earn that relationship and earn where you guys are now. And all the best for you with that. Now, with your competition and where you want to go next. So was that your debut in November again in Celtic Gladiator? Yeah. Yeah. So regards to that performance, I watched it. It was a very frustrating fight. It looked very much like, okay, it's 3 rounds getting held against the fence, trying to get something started.
Right. Thinking about it. I'm still angry about it. I haven't gotten over it. It's been a couple of months, but I'm still really angry. And I think maybe it's a good thing. That's how I see it. I'll take this all into my next fight, and it'll get me the win that I deserve. It was definitely a very frustrating fight. It's not what I had it in mind. I wanted it to be more of a aggressive, striking fight, maybe a bit of ground and pound. It wasn't that. But you live and you learn. And I do think the circumstances also changed the nature of the fight. It was locked down 2 weeks before my fight, which meant I couldn't really train with my team. I only managed to get 2 sessions in with my coach to do a bit of pad work. So it was really tough in that sense that I was weight cutting for the first time on my own. I've never been 66 kilos. So that was a big battle on its own. Surprisingly, I managed to do it on my own, and I did it the healthy way without doing anything crazy. But the training was tough because it meant that every single day I had to find a way to train twice a day, burn enough calories, and stay fit.
So, I mean, it stresses me out thinking about that. So a few questions with this now. One, how tall are you? Because 66, quite a tall frame. It's a bit close.
I'm 173, so I'm 5'8".
Oh, okay, that's not crazy then, because I'm not 6'2". Me, 66 is a very miserable sight. It's not one for anyone to see. But with your cut in itself, then, how did you manage that? Was it just general calorie deficit? Was it like a nutritionist? How did you find out what you needed versus what you're getting in?
So I'm a personal trainer and a nutrition coach, funny enough. But it was the thought, I think, that was worrying because, like I said, I can't remember the last time I was 66. I usually always walk around at 71. And I know it was only 5 kilos, but at the time I was like 72.5. So I was like, how am I going to get 6.5 kilos down in 5 weeks? That's what was worrying me. And I didn't want to do it the unhealthy way. So all I basically did was I stuck to what I usually eat, which is I always have healthy meals. And I just took out all my nice, lovely, tasty snacks that I like having, which is chocolate every day. And I was just more considerate about salt. I was considerate about like certain foods that make you retain water. even with carbs, I was eating carbs up until the day before a weigh-in, so I didn't even have to cut that out a week in advance. And I water loaded a lot, so I was having like 5-6 liters a day, and exercising a lot. So my focus on my workouts, my second workout of the day, was mainly to burn 800 calories and not focus on the time. So
sorry, I thought you finished.
Pardon?
Sorry, I thought you finished. So we keep interrupting each other. Don't mean to. Apologies. With the weight cutting side of it, where something that's really underappreciated is the psychology of it. I feel that is, yes, it is X amount of kilos. Yes, you eat less than this amount for this amount of weeks. Yes, you make the weight. Full stop. But that's not how it is. It's like, okay, shit. I've just had a carrot shit. I'm weighing myself just in case. Fuck, I'm overweight. Shit, I'm not gonna make weight. Shit, I might pull out. Fuck, catch weight. Thinking,
It's true.
It'll be all right. It'll be all right. Don't worry about it. But again, it's very hard to appreciate. And again, regards of, I don't know, the sort of mental support with it, because again, it's not so much just the physical training. Because again, there's only so many ways you can really prepare for a fight. You're gonna do sparring, and hit pads, and so on and so forth. But regards of keeping your head in a good sort of space with this, is it something you were quite open about? Were you always in a good headspace anyway, regardless of how you perform? Was it something you reached out for?
So regarding that, I was very motivated because it was something that I've been waiting for. So it was 2 years that I was like, I started doing MMA, because I'll tell you the history how I started training in the first place. But it was 2 years, and I kind of really badly wanted it. And just like the usual typical, anyone would think, okay, I've been training for this long, I'm so ready. So that's exactly how I felt. And I always believed in my fitness, because that was something I never really had a problem with. I love cardio. So regarding being motivated, I just kept thinking, this is what I've been waiting for so long. It's finally here. The tough part is that the fight was cancelled, and then it was postponed, and just that kind of not knowing whether it was going to happen or not, and suffering in terms of like doing the weight cut, because there were days I was hungry. I was like struggling to sleep. I couldn't sleep for hours. And like you said, I was like, do I get up and have a carrot? Do I have something like lettuce, or is it going to ruin things? And I was like so strict. And I remember even Wesley Meyer was saying to me, oh, bless you, because this is your first one, it's going to be really tough, because you're not going to know how to cheat your way. He's like, but trust me, the more experience you have, you'll start knowing that maybe if you did have a square of like chocolate or whatever it is, it's not going to ruin anything. Which was funny, because later on when I did make weight, I kind of thought to myself, wow, I was so strict, and I made weight way before before the day of the weigh-in. So I could have played around, but it was just the fear of messing it up. But my motivation came from, I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to be that person where a weigh-in came and I did the virtual weigh-in and I was overweight and I couldn't fight because of something so stupid. So it kept me motivated.
So with that then, is that more, who were you more worried about disappointing them? Was it more yourself? Was it your team? Was it your partner? What was it? Because that would sound very much more external than it is an internal thing.
So one was definitely me, because everything I do is always for myself. So I wanted to make sure, I said I was going to do it. I am going to do it. And I've never missed weight for any of my comps. And obviously the second person is Brad. So he does mean a lot to me. He's put that much effort in, training me, getting me the fight. I don't want him to look bad that, one of his students didn't make weight. So yeah.
A bit of context for everyone as well. Wesley Meyer, so much hitting weight. He's the most shredded man who's ever lived. So I think you can take his word as gospel.
You know what's so funny is that he's like, you can't even, I don't know how he loses the weight. He doesn't have anything to lose.
I've got no idea how he does it. Must chop off a leg and put it back on or something. I don't know how it works out. But again, this is where I feel the first couple of amateur fights are very much like I don't know, sort of, I call it like a calibration kind of process. You're sort of, okay, this is how much I need to do. This is sort of, you get used to all these nerves and anxieties and you start trimming the fat a bit. Okay, I've made weight 6 weeks out now. I think I should be all right to have like I don't know, some dinner. But again, it's understanding, okay, this is where I should focus my energy at this point, and this energy there. This is the biggest picture now. I lost this round now. I lost my fight. Essentially, I'm going to cry. No. Okay, problem solved. That's an issue I could have had.
I did cry.
I think I lost all my weight from crying in my comps, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And this is what I always say is that the more you do it, or the more fights you have, it doesn't get easier, but you just become more familiar with the experience in terms of like, I'll maybe worry a bit less about the weight cut. It was my birthday as well. It was my partner's birthday, and both days I was like, I'm not having anything. On my birthday, my treat was having fish instead of chicken for dinner. So
Oh, happy birthday. You sorted. What more do you want?
I needed something to look forward to, and that was it. That was it. So yeah, it
I
does
think
get, you do get more familiar with the process, I guess.
I feel that becomes another art in itself of understanding the things to sacrifice, things that need to be sacrificed, and how you can adapt certain things. Because again, like you're saying there, both your birthday weekends, that kind of thing. It's trying to not spoil it as such, but also make sure you're getting what you need. And it's that. This is where things are so underappreciated. That okay, you hear people saying they miss all their family events because they're going on their runs, they've got training, you miss meals, all these sort of things. But again, there's certain things I feel you can kind of, I don't know, make the odd exception just for your own well-being and own mental state. I feel because I can't help but feel if you miss these things to train more, the
Mm.
anxiety and the stress about missing those things then makes that session a bit detrimental. And again, it becomes a whole thing in itself. How did you feel after? So after the fight in itself, getting the frustrating result, looking back on the sacrifices you made, how did you feel? Did you feel, oh, I should have just did those things there? Did you feel made the right decisions still? How, on reflection, how did you feel at that point?
I definitely didn't regret anything. So I even remember when Brad told me, by the way, I might have a fight for you. And it was around my birthday week. So the fight was originally meant to be a day before my birthday. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's like the best way to celebrate. And then when it got postponed till like 3 days after my birthday, I was still like, that's still an amazing celebration. So I guess if you love something so much, you won't look at it as a negative or it's taken away from other experiences. And even regarding, like you were saying, with on the day, like I said, it's just making the best out of what you've got. Oh, I'm gonna treat myself to some fish today, but instead of having this. And even on my birthday, I remember Brad was saying, oh, like he trained me for a session just to do, like, to hit the pads, get things, the game plan and all that. That for me was also another birthday gift, because it's something I love again, instead of having to do my own workout at home. Um, and there is a lot of sacrifices. I even remember my family were saying, "Are you crazy? Why would you take a fight right before your birthday? That's just stupid. It's your birthday." I'm like, no, but this means more to me than my birthday. I can celebrate my birthday any day. I did celebrate it for 2 weeks after my fight. That didn't change. So, and I guess a lot of fighters have that mentality.
Well, this is what you said there. Like the prime example of that, this is back to the almost the start of this conversation where it's the sort of societal norms of this is what you should be doing, this is how things are. And the fighting like lifestyle of the world is very against that. It's not set 9 to 5 hours, it's not set salary, it's not set this, that, and the other. It's very ambiguous, it's very unorthodox. And again, it's a lot more
Yeah,
fulfilling. The fulfillment you get from having a fight, making the weight, the rest of it doesn't compare to anything like trivial normal day-to-day office sort of life. And again, when it comes to birthday celebrations, people think, oh, miss the gym, do everything else, enjoy some food. And if you enjoy the gym, you enjoy the training, you're not reluctant to get there to then do it. You're not there grinding. You're there all day thinking about your workout, looking forward to, excited to it. And again, it's a very different thing. You can't explain it to anyone who doesn't get it. And like you said there, you're doing on your birthday what you want to do. That
yeah.
is that's how you celebrate things. You do things what you want to do. You enjoy it with people you want to be with. What more do you want?
There's something you said about money, which is a point I wanted to make, is that I think that's another thing that people don't understand when I say, like, I'm so passionate about fighting, is the number one question I get asked all the time. Are you getting paid for it? Are you stupid? Why are you doing it if you're not getting paid? And it was the same thing, that it's always about money. And that's the thing. I believe in fighting. If people want to make it, if you're money driven, you're not going to be able to put in the work, because you're not really going to get paid anything in the beginning. And it is really about building that record, building a name, building the brand. And that's the only way we're going to be able to do it, and then get paid the money. And that's the big reward at the end. So it is hard work, though.
Well, I think there's the metaphor, sort of usual thing of like hibernating. Again, it's the sort of you storing your things for the later thing. You're prolonging the initial gratitude to the bigger picture. And this
Yeah.
is where this value comes from because it's the perspective on it. And what I say to this is if you say, I've got to go to the gym tonight, it's take me 2 hours, I can't be fucked. You think, okay, if I want to be in the UFC, all I've got to do is go to the gym. That's all I've got to do. What would you rather do? Would you rather go to the gym and get your UFC fight, UFC contract, or would you rather stay at home and, watch whatever shit on Netflix? It's
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
conversation. It's not a conversation. It's done. Now, regards of training with obviously a very very male dominant sport with a lot of men in the gym, how do you find getting applicable female sort of sparring partners and that sort of styles? Because again, if you're sparring with all the guys, you'll start sparring like them. But again, the girls fight very differently to that. How do you find keeping your style and building your style as such?
I do think, because like you said, it is a male dominant sport. um I don't think necessarily that we would change our style closer to them or like more similar to them, but we do kind of learn from each other. Sometimes I do think women can be more technical
Mm.
than men, because we're not relying on that aggressive element. Um, so, but training with men, I've always found it beneficial because of their strength. Um, it kind of helps us feel like, I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to put it.
Mm.
Uh, it does help because sometimes it depends on who you're going with. Because there are men, for example, it could be a guy that's bigger and stronger than me, but they know how to use their own weight and strength to my advantage. So it's just keeping me moving on the go, where I'm transitioning into different positions constantly, which helps improve my fitness, helps me think of how to transition from one move to another instead of stalling. So we do help each other, I do think. And I'm sure women help men in other ways. I'm not sure how, but I'm sure we do.
Well, this is the rule of thumb you seem to find with a lot of female athletes. Like there's a girl at our gym, Haley. She's, I think, maybe 50 kilos soaking wet, and she is the most technical person on the mat. No two ways about it. And again, you sort of that what you lack in the power and the strength, people who can muscle through things, you have to make up for in technique. You have to find a way of making something work. And again,
Yeah.
we said pound for pound, she'd be the scariest fighter. I'd hate that so much. This is sort of the point still. And again, this is where you can really start to I don't know, you start to appreciate what actually needs doing, what actually works, and how to make things work properly. And then you start to apply that. The idea being that once you've done that, fighting someone your own weight, you run through it no problem. And it's an interesting sort of concept. So, regards of sparring there, do you tend to prioritize sparring with guys then? Do you prefer sparring with girls? Do you prefer what sort of rounds do you tend to prefer regards to MMA sparring?
I do like to mix it up. Um, of course, the men to women ratio, there's always a lot more men. But I definitely, every sparring session, I go with the boys and the girls. Usually, there's always, I've got like one girl in my team that's the same weight division as me, so we tend to pair up quite often. But then we still like to change it up because, like you were saying, there's different technique, different ways of sparring. You don't want to get used to it, and you don't want to get comfortable. Um, and it's good going with the guys because we do have so many different styles where a lot of them are really quick on their feet. Their power is, they've got that power behind their jab or behind their striking. So it keeps you on your toes in a way. And then sparring with different people, you learn from the way they spar while you're in the sparring session, because you're being observant. You're trying to watch what they're going to throw at you or what they're going to do. And then you learn how to defend from that. Just, it's very good in that sense.
Now, with that being said, then how do you learn? Are you very much okay? Are you very reactive? Something happened to me, ergo, I need to then work out to sort it out. Is it more if I apply this, you can't do that? How do you learn and how do you apply what you learn as such?
So I like, if I get trapped in the same position quite often, let's say, or I get caught in a position, I then like to see why am I getting caught in it, and that's one of the ways I like to learn. Or if let's say there's a move that I like to do and then I find that people tend to get out of it quite often, and I like to then question them, how did you find a way to get out, or what made you think you were able to get out? So this is ways that I like to learn, so I don't keep repeating the same mistakes or working on my weaknesses. I like to always give myself a new goal. So let's say there's a move that I've seen that I'd like to do, like let's say a double kick or a teep into a kick. So I work on that to perfect it, and then I like moving on to a new move, because I always find when I've got something that I'm focused on, it keeps me motivated instead of just taking whatever comes at me or learning whatever is given to me in a session.
So when it comes to learning these techniques individually, again, I'm going to sort of pick your brain on this a bit more. So say the double kicks or the teeps, is it something you'll ask for feedback? Is it something you have to land in sparring X amount of times to get, okay, I know how to do that properly? Is it something you journal? How do you know when I don't know, you're confident with the technique to an extent?
Well, sometimes I like to practice things on my own, for example. So that's what I did during the lockdown. When my partner started practicing holding pads for me, I was like, okay, you know what? There's a couple of things I've been wanting to learn, where sometimes you don't find enough time to do it at the gym, let's say. I started doing that, and then when we went back to training, I was like, okay, now I'm going to try this in sparring and see how I get on. So it's like when you start feeling like you're more confident doing the move, and you start using it more often without having to think about it, then I start thinking about, okay, what else can I potentially learn?
So are you more building off of, how do I explain this? So is what you're learning part of a structure of things you're learning to build on? So for example, the teep leads to X, then leads to Y, and so on and so forth, or is it more just a collective arsenal of things you've got?
No, it's more of a collective. I wouldn't say things that are building on. I'm one of those people that you hear a lot where people say, oh, I hate takedowns, or I don't like doing a single leg takedown. I don't like saying the words I don't like doing it, so I'm not going to do it. I do believe everyone has their own style in martial arts, and there are things you're good at or things that you're better at. But I do think you need to drill everything, because there's been plenty of situations where, for example, my jiu-jitsu competitions, where I remember at training feeling like I wasn't good at perfecting a move, and then I pulled it off in a competition because I was drilling it. So I do believe a lot of in different positions, like while you're competing or sparring, you're going to pull a move that's beneficial for that particular defense or attack. So it's always good to try everything, learn as much as you can without labeling things as, I don't like it, I don't want to do it, or I'm not going to do it because that's not my style.
I mean, where this comes down to a lot of the time is being able to do it. If you can do it and choose not to, that's very different to I just don't like it. Like,
Yeah.
very, very different. I remember, have you trained in the gi much?
Oh yes, but I'm not a fan.
When I first started, started in the gi, we did De La Riva the first like couple of weeks. I was thinking, what the fuck? It's never going to use this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what does a
I'm
fucking
the
2 week
same.
white belt know about trying De La Riva? What
Yeah.
credit do I have to say that? Nothing. Nothing.
It is a bit of an awkward position. I agree. I felt exactly the same way when I did learn it. I was kind of like, no, that's not me. But let me see how I get on. And eventually you start realizing sometimes when you're just there and you're like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And then you remember something like that, for example, and you're like, I might as well pull a De La Riva right now. So it is good to have.
Well, definitely, you're expanding your world, expanding possibilities, and again, you're giving yourself these options. And this is where I think, at least with my own understanding, it went from individual techniques to then concepts, and then you understand things a lot more because you build a foundation of things you understand. You can start applying things, more shapes, and it's more, again, less is more as it starts to go on. Now, regards to the evolution of your career there, so first fight, frustrating result, but again, the camp in itself, what would you like to do differently next time around? So say you get a fight, I don't know, say July, why not? Have you got a preference of how you want to do things differently? The things you even want to do differently? Where do you
Yeah,
feel is the biggest priority now?
I think regarding lockdown, I've learned that I don't want to say the word do things illegally, but definitely train and not do things on my own, because that does mess around with your mindset. There's obviously a lot of things that I took from the fight that I definitely know that I need to work on. Even in the fight itself, I remember if I compare it to the amount of competitions I've done in jiu-jitsu, I know when you first start, the common thing you hear, I'm not sure what am I going to do? What if I get stuck? What if this? What if that? And the more you do it, the more you start getting comfortable that when you are in a sticky situation, you know how to not necessarily get yourself out of it, but you can think of many different options that you have. And this is what I felt like where I struggled with during my fight, is that I didn't feel like I was there in the moment. I was really happy to finally get it done, and I didn't feel as nervous, surprisingly. When I got there, I was very, very calm. But I felt like I missed out on a couple of things that I could have done. And I remembered later on, oh, we've done this at training. This could have worked. That could have worked. This could have worked. So, and I didn't feel I really got to show who I really am and what I'm capable of. So that's something I definitely want to do in my next fight, is show who I really am and go in as the person that I know I'm capable of, showcasing my skills.
It's going to sound like a bit of a strange question, but do you feel your first fight was more orientated around you getting in there opposed to getting the result? Like when yourself, regardless of that, regardless of getting to the actual show itself, stepping in the cage, that was the goal ticked off mentally. Because then after that point, again, you get sort of frustrated. You get, I don't know, the urgency, everything else. You seem to just, that sort of frustration. You see what I mean? Does that make sense?
I know what you mean. I wouldn't say that's how it felt necessarily at that point. And it's crazy because I was 100% certain I was going to win that fight. Well, like, that is my mentality. You know, when people say, well, if you don't win, I get really pissed off when people say that to me. I'm like, don't say those words to me. Say, when you win, because I am going to win. And that's always been my mentality. So I think that's what made me really angry, because I went in believing more than 110% that I was going to come out with a win and I was going to go celebrate. And to come out with a loss was just really painful and hard to accept. But what made it even harder to accept is that I know that I could have won it and that she wasn't better than me. And I think sometimes it's harder to accept these things when you get a loss on your record, knowing that that person isn't better than you. And I'm not saying that the judges made the wrong decision. It could have gone in either way. People could have seen it different ways. At the end of the day, that was the end result, and it happened. But I know for a fact, from the type of fighter I am and the person that I am, I do take a lot from my losses, and it will only make me stronger. So it's not going to make me question my ability. It never has. I just know what I need to do next time to get the win.
I mean, this is a very powerful moment as such, because again, with your career, your commitments, everything you've sort of sacrificed to get to where you are, when you end up coming up short of this sort of stage, it's a very sort of crossroads sort of moment in the sense of, but again, if you remember, you're not doing this for that one amateur fight. Your life isn't rotated around that one fight, and that was the off in the sunset moment. No, it's the bigger picture. Once you start to appreciate that, again, that's not who you are. If you fought your heart out, fought as honestly and as most as you could do, the result doesn't matter at that point. But I think the crude way I explain this is like blue balls as such. Is very much like I've got prepared for the whole fight, all this energy, everything, and I couldn't really do a lot. It's very like, that's not me. Who's that in there? That's not me. That's not me. Who is that?
No, you're right. Even when I watched it, I was like, oh my God. It's like, it was so crazy that I was like, that is not me. Why did I fight that way? And what really upset me as well is the feedback I was getting from people afterwards that don't know anything about MMA. Oh, that sport doesn't suit you. I don't think you should do it. Oh, maybe you should just stick to jiu-jitsu. I'm like, but you don't know MMA. Why are you saying this? You don't know me.
Who said
And
that?
it's that comment that I got. I was so upset. I was like, oh my God, people just need to wait for the second one.
That's
you know? And like you said, I'm not doing it as a hobby. I'm not doing it as, I'm not that person that's just like, oh, let me just get experience. My amateur record doesn't matter. Because I've heard that before from people. It's okay. And I get it. It's only an amateur record. But I want it to look the way I want it to be. I didn't want to be defeated. Sadly, I've got one loss, but I'm just really hoping that loss is what's going to get me all my wins in the future, because I know that was the case when I did the Euros in jiu-jitsu. I got to the finals. It was against me and this girl. I lost the fight in the last I just had 3 seconds, got tapped out. It killed me.
Mm.
And from that day, bearing in mind I've always been a gold medalist, but I got on that stage and I knew I was like, I am going to be number one. And to stand on the podium number two, if you see the picture, it's terrible. I still can't believe till this day I couldn't even fake a smile. I was crying my eyes out. And I was like, I'm not smiling, blah, blah. Obviously now I look back and I'm like, I should have smiled at least. But going into all my other competitions afterwards in jiu-jitsu, it was a completely different mindset. So this is what I'm going to take from that loss that I had.
I can't go over how rude those people. Wow, I can't. That's just. I can't. One thing I'm going to ask about that: are they people who train, or people who just like are your quote unquote friends, or people you know, or just who are those people?
Oh, people that don't train.
Yeah, there we are. I thought so. There we go.
That's
Yeah.
what drives me crazy. No, I didn't get it from people that train.
I was
It's
going to say
definitely
you wouldn't get it from people who train. That they're not.
no,
That
no.
disrespectful.
And a lot of people are just like, oh, come on, it's just a fight. And it's like, have you not been listening to me for the past couple of years that, what I want to achieve out of this? This isn't just a fight that I've gone into. It's tough. The comments, I just don't understand how celebrities do with the trolls and all that.
It's just 9 minutes. You just get a fight, punch or do. I think I'll just have a day off. I can't. It just gets me. Anyway, we're moving on. We're moving on. But yeah. Okay, let's try and get some composure. I'm getting furious now, but it's fine. It's absolutely fine. But again, this is where, when it comes to experiences and experience and this kind of thing, Martin Stapleton's a man for this kind of mindset with stuff, and it's appreciating what these moments really mean. You now know if you're in a fight for that kind of time and it's ambiguous, there's a chance you get shafted by the judges, albeit might be legit, might not be, but then that is a possibility. And again, as much as you don't want that language of ifs, buts, and maybes, all these kind of things, it's then understanding, okay, this is now a possibility. This is an experience I've now gone through. Yes, it may not be what I want to happen, but it's a very even thing. Until anything happens, it's a very 50-50 thing. We've got the same chance of everything happening. But it's appreciating what that means to you. That when you're having your spars now, are you scoring them as such? So I say now, this is all pre-COVID talk. This is all outside of lockdown for everyone listening, just so they don't get shitty. That's fine. Are you internally scoring rounds as such? Are you just sparring for general, like, what's your mentality when you're in the rounds? You're trying to score it like you're going to win a fight? What does that mean to you at that point?
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. And that's where I had issues with is scoring it while I was in the fight itself, because I know how to score my jiu-jitsu competitions because I've done so many of them, and you know where you need to be. But that's where I kind of went wrong with the MMA, because to me, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't see having your back on the cage as being controlled, where obviously in MMA, when you're being scored, that's how it works. But that's where I kind of went wrong, is not looking at the scoring system during my fight. And it was time as well. Like, I felt like the rounds went by super quick. The 3-minute rounds felt like it was just like less than a minute. So it was like understanding the urgency of time. The cage was also quite small, so it was a lot smaller than the usual, which made it a bit uncomfortable because the minute you took a step back, your back was already on the cage. It did definitely change my sparring, where things that I was more comfortable doing while I was in sparring sessions, now I'm like trying to think of it as more of an urgency. What would I do if I was in a fight? I don't want to be in this position. I want to get out. I want to do this. I want to do that. Maybe even be more active and not stall too much while standing, moving around. So yeah, it's definitely changed a lot.
And this is where you really need to, that's your next step in maturity, I feel. And again, this is where decisions, as much as they can really shaft, they can really make you as well. And again, say you got the decision on that fight, where would you be now? I mean, you'd be exactly where you are right now. But this is sort of the point. This is where, bigger picture, this is how you then get to the next stage. Again, jiu-jitsu is clear-cut points, 2 points for that, 3 points for that, 4 points for that, X amount of time, done. You know exactly what you need with that. And again, MMA, the thing I always say is like the floor and the wall is lava. If your back's touching that, you're in a deficit. Because everyone who's a jiu-jitsu person who spends 4 minutes and 59 seconds on their back hoping for that last second sub, have fun getting a nice decision against you. Again,
Sorry, carry on.
No, it's fine. I'm just going to go. I'm not just going to waffle, but feel free
no,
to.
You're right. You said the perfect thing is that the funny part is that I always hated being on my back anyways in jiu-jitsu, so I don't understand why I was comfortable doing it on the cage. So yeah, you're right in terms of it is very different in MMA.
But again, this is exactly what this is for. Like, this is time for you to make these, not even mistakes, you points to understand things. Because what this means is you now have experience to your words. Your words have weight. You know now when someone says to you, get your back off that fucking fence in probably a sparring sense, very loud, very aggressive. You know it's not just a very nice thing to say because it's a good habit. You think, shit, I could lose a fight because of this.
Yes.
That's where it's got more, okay, shit, okay, I'm getting the fuck up. Like here, at least I'm gonna get the fuck back on your feet. Think, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm getting stand back up right now, coach. I'm already up. It's fine. I'm up. The fence is nowhere near. I'm winning. Bye. I'm not having this again.
And in a way, I get when people say that you're better off making those mistakes as an amateur. It's kind of true. At the end of the day, I guess people at any level will be making mistakes. You can't avoid making mistakes. But I've always been a harsh critic on myself. Even after my wins, I've always watched my fights to criticize what I've done wrong or what I could have done better. That's just me. And standing at the end of the fight waiting for the judge to announce, who, with the ref to announce who won, I kind of, it wasn't a nice feeling to stand there not knowing whether I won or not. And I already had a strong feeling they weren't going to give it to me, because when I later realized how much my back was on the cage and the reversals weren't enough. So yeah, it's only going to make me stronger.
Definitely. Regards of something you said there, which I want to go into quite a bit, is your internal voice, the way you break down things, the way you critique things. I say critique in inverted commas because, again, I can imagine it's not that nice. Like, how do you manage that? So what does your internal critique look like? Is it very matter of fact of X, Y, and Z? Is it opinion based? Talk me through critique of the fight from yourself, how you talk to yourself after that fight.
So one thing, like I mentioned before, is that I definitely said to myself, I know that wasn't me. And that if I really went in as myself, it would have been a different fight. I definitely know I'm capable of more. That's not my style of fighting. I don't like this whole pinning against the cage. I just think it's boring. From watching UFC fights and watching fights on Bellator or like The Ultimate Fighter, which I'm a big fan of, every time I've seen a fight that ended up on the cage, I'm like, oh my God, this is so boring. And I get why Dana White hates it. So when my fight ended up that way, I was like, oh my God, I'm so pissed off. I never thought my first fight was going to be this boring. I just couldn't, like, I had a lot of people ask me afterwards, can I watch your fight? I'm like, no.
No, they've recorded the footage. I can't find it anywhere. I must have deleted it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't even own the video. But yeah, I look at the things that I've done wrong, the things that I would have wanted to do. So maybe more striking, for example, getting that takedown that I wanted to try get. A lot of things that just all the options that I had that I didn't do or that didn't work.
So this is where things need to get very sort of careful as such. Again, when you're in a position where you're that emotionally invested and also a critique, it can go very detrimental very quickly. So again, it's that fine. Do you sound these things out at all? Do you talk about the critique you're making to yourself, to other people? You're saying, okay, Brad, what do you think I did wrong with this, that, and the what? X and Y? Is it more internal? How do you like to get that feedback?
So one, I talk to myself about it in my head. I definitely think about it a lot, which I still think about it today. And I think that's what charges me for the next one. That's how I see it. I definitely like to sit down with people. I'm very I do choose who I want to sit and talk about it with, because like I said, a lot of people tend to give you their opinion and it's unnecessary. I wouldn't talk to someone that doesn't have experience in fighting, except my partner actually, because he'll obviously, he doesn't say things just to make me feel better, because he knows who I am. And that was his first comment as well. That wasn't you in the cage. I know you're capable of more. But it's good to, I do think sometimes it's good to talk to people and hear their opinion. And people will always share their stories, which will then make you think, okay, if you have so much respect for someone that you know their record is amazing, when they turn around and say, oh, by the way, you should have seen my first fight, this happened, which did happen at Top Team. I had a couple of the boys share their stories, which made me feel better, because you do question yourself sometimes and think, shit, do I think I'm better than I actually am? Or what's in my head, is it different to what reality is? So it's good to hear other people's opinion.
And this sort of goes back full circle to the sort of progression sort of thing. Because again, if you're on your own, you have your amateur fight, you come up short the way you did, you haven't got any perspective of, is that good? Is that a thing? Should I give it up? But again, you see people who are experienced, people are professionals now, people are doing well, thinking, yeah, happens. And then you think, okay, cool, doesn't matter. If I win the next X amount back to back, that initial fight is completely irrelevant, almost off the radar entirely. And this is where there's a very, very, very important rule of thumb I have with this is don't go to people who you wouldn't go to, don't take critique from people you wouldn't go to for advice. And it's so important. It's so important. Because again, why would you ask, like, I don't know, Jack the lad down the pub about, oh, how's my cage control? Think, oh shit, you should have fucking knocked him out. Think, oh, I didn't think of that one. Fucking spot on, you are. Sign him up. Whereas you think, okay, I'll speak to Brad, the UFC veteran, the guy who trains MMA fighters all the time. What do I do wrong? Oh, this X, Y, and Z. I think, okay, cool. That makes a bit more sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Even just talking about people, like I know when I came out of my fight, people were like, oh, how are you doing? And just saying to them, oh, I'm really annoyed, I'm not happy with the result. And they just decided, oh, I'm entitled to give you some advice about MMA and what you should be doing with your life. And I'm like, have you ever fought? Have you ever done a sport? Have you ever even tried? Do you even know how this sport works? No. Then why are you giving me advice? So that's something I definitely learned when I came out of my fight. When people were calling me and it's like, oh, I just want to check up on you. I'm like, you know what? There's nothing to talk about. I know, and I was very direct with them. I know who I want to talk to about this. I'm okay. Thanks for the support. That's it. You don't even need to tell me well done. I'll let you pass on that one.
So here's a hypothetical for you. You walk out the cage and then you're approached by you now. What do you say to yourself having just lost that fight, having known exactly what you know and being able to process that now with that hindsight?
That's a good question. I think be yourself. That's one when I keep saying that wasn't me. I felt like, which is funny that some people even said it to me after I thought about it. I felt like I was holding back, and I shouldn't hold back next time. But then again, like I said, it wasn't like it was a deliberate thing. I wasn't deliberately holding back. It just happened to be. And maybe it could be multiple factors. Like I said, it was lockdown. That I had to do a lot of the training 2 weeks before my fight on my own. I didn't believe the fight was going to happen because it was postponed, and then we got another message saying that we're changing the venue. So instead of, it was meant to be in Manchester, it's going to be in Wales. So many changes along the way. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, I'm not going to believe this fight is going to happen until I'm in the cage. And that was my thought the entire time, because I kept thinking, oh, in some way it's going to get cancelled. And I know a lot of people kept saying to me, Lisa, stop thinking that way, because if you keep thinking this way, you're not going to be fight ready. Because you're kind of telling your brain, oh, I'm not going to fight, but then you're also telling yourself you are going to fight. But I couldn't help not think that way. So I do think for the next one, a lot of things are going to change. Like in terms of my mindset, now I know even if it's lockdown, fights can happen. I know there was like clans that was supposed to be happening this weekend and it got cancelled. That's unfortunate. So there is that possibility still there, but like I said, the one thing I'd say to myself is be yourself in there and remember why I'm there.
And the reason I asked that question, because again, like the main sort of theme with this was people who don't get it. The person who gets it the most, again, that's the thing you'd say, literally, like, that's not you. And this is why that's important. Because again, like what can you say to someone who's put their heart, soul, life, energy, everything into this moment and then come up short? There's nothing to say except for, just have your tears, have your moment, but remember why you started. Literally, it's a very, very powerful sort of moment. I think we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for your time. Regards to social media, how can people find you?
Well, thank you so much for having me as well. So my Instagram page is Zimmo_MMA. And yeah, feel free to give me a follow and watch my journey.
And this episode will be available on all streaming platforms, as you might be aware, having listened to this. Be sure to check out our sponsors, English Hypnotist, and also Fisticuffs merch. We've got the shorts, Valentinos available now for Techie Fightwear. And as of yesterday, after our little studio day, we have the rash guards as well. A matching set. That's quite cute. Wait, where's the other half of it? There we are, half and half, little matching set. And you'll see on my Instagram, __ or Fisticuffs _podcast for all my modeling shots. So here we are. Links those up in the description, and we are